Greetings, Moonlight citizens. This is your Moonlight King here with the latest episode of Moonlight Kingdom Reviews. And I've been wanting to do this one for a while, man. I remember I teased this way back several months ago. I fully intended to do it then, but wasn't able to. But now I'm going to do it properly with the release of Bad Boys 4. Let us review another Will Smith classic, Enemy of the State. Yeah, this 90s classic, Enemy of the State, 1998 movie. Let's get into it. All right, some much needed background on this here film. This film is directed by Tony Scott, starring Will Smith, Gene Hackman, Jon Voight, with a budget of $90 million dollars and a box office of $250 million dollars. The film was originally set to star Tom Cruise, but he had to turn it down because he was filming Eyes Wide Shut at the same time. Other actors that were considered for the role played by Will Smith were Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and George Clooney. Another actor before they cast Gene Hackman that was considered for the role of Brill was Sean Connery. That would have been an interesting part. Yeah. Will Smith turned down being in the movie Snake Eyes to appear in this movie, and he took this role for less than his usual fee because he really wanted to work with Gene Hackman. Anyway, that's all the background that I got for this movie so far. Let's get into the actual movie now. Into it. All right, let's get into this one. So this film is about the death of a politician who a guy by the name of Bill Hammersley, who wanted to stop a privacy bill from being passed. And it all wound up being taped by Jason Scott Lee's character, Daniel Zavitz, who then gave the tape to Will Smith's character, Robert Dean. Throw in some conspiracy, intrigue, government oversight, and violation of basic privacy and rights and all that in the name of national security, and that's this movie in a nutshell. So, yeah. You know all those 90s conspiracies about the government tapping your phones and black helicopters and Big Brother watching you, good old 1984 stuff. Yeah, that's this movie. This movie says, yeah, that's not a conspiracy. That's very real and very possible. So, moving on. This movie was a precursor to a lot of things that would basically come to pass in subsequent years. I'll get into that later, but yeah. The film, before we get into that, this film is a who's who of before they were famous. Because this movie's got, aside from the big stars, this film's got Scott Kahn from Hawaii Five-O, Jake Busey from Predator 2018, Tomcats and Starship Troopers, Seth Green from, well, you know who Seth Green is, Barry Pepper from Battlefield Earth, along with, he was also in the Lone Rangers, that I think it was that Confederate dude, but yeah. And Jamie Kennedy from Son of the Mask, not to mention Jack Black of Tenacious D fame. Oh, that's right, man. He's here too. And they're all playing NSA guys. Jack Black, Seth Green, and Jamie Kennedy are the NSA tech guys in the guys in the van. Weird, man. These five dudes, you could make a solid band out of this crew right here. But anyway, Scott Kahn and Jake Busey are the agency guys brought in to do the shady. Oh, not to mention Barry Pepper. They were brought in to do the shady stuff the NSA needs done. Guy. So yeah. Jon Voight is playing the main antagonist of this film. So yeah. Onward we get with the film. So because this movie, so Robert Dean has a tape, he has this tape unknowingly, mind you. He unknowingly has this tape. And so the NSA guys, they show up at his place. So he was shopping for lingerie, and Daniel Zavitz, Jason Scott Lee's character, he having seen the tape and being chased by the NSA guys, drops it in one of his bags, and Robert unknowingly takes the tape home with him. And the NSA guys figure out that Dean has the tape based on some security footage. And Jon Voight's character in this movie, the main villain, he figures Dean has the tape, he knows what's on it, and he's going to go public with it. And before he can do that, we're going to discredit him. So basically, we're going to essentially make it so that when he does come up with the tape, nobody's going to believe anything. So if he does decide to come up with it, nobody's going to believe him. Nobody's going to, listen to a person who's been discredited and has very low, already has a low opinion, who people already distrust, basically. So they're preparing for the worst. And what makes matters worse is Will Smith's character, Robert Dean, has no idea any of this is going on until they go way too far with this crap. So Thing is, they get him fired from his job. They get him fired. He's a labor lawyer. They get him fired from his job. Why they think a labor lawyer has something would want to expose government corruption, I don't know. But whatever. They get him fired from his job. I can understand getting fired from his job, and I can understand them breaking into his house to try to get the tape back. But the rest of this stuff makes no sense. See, they try to discredit him. They get into his life. They try to make him miserable. I don't know why. I do not know. I understand wanting to discredit the guy so when he does come out with the tape, like nobody will listen. But like the rest of this stuff makes no sense. Canceling his credit cards, like what is canceling his credit cards going to do? Like, yeah, you're making life hard for him, but that's not discrediting him. And sending his wife photos of him and, his former mistress, Rachel, like, that's messed up. That has nothing to do with anything. I mean, if you had took those photos and you sent them to his place of employment, I could understand that. But, like, you sent them to his wife. What's that going to do? All that's going to do is trash his marriage. That's not going to affect him from a professional standpoint. Like, yeah, they broke into his house, they trashed his stuff, they put trackers in all his clothes and his car and all that. And another thing, at this point, I'm like, oh, they're just messing with him now. Like, they're not just the stuff of taking the photos, but like, there's a point where you're like, okay, now you're just messing with him. Like, they stole his blender, and so yeah, they trashed all his clothes except like one suit, the suit that they filled full of trackers. And then once his wife kicks him out of the house, he has to go stay in he tries checking into a hotel. He discovers his credit cards aren't working, and they steal his briefcase. Like, what is stealing that brief? It's like, okay, now you're just messing with him. There doesn't seem to be any end goal to this. It just seems to be a case of, we're going to make this man's life hell just cause. We've already cost him his job. His marriage is on the edge. Now let's just mess with him. Like, and this does nothing. This isn't doing anything, but it's going to end up making him suspicious that something is going on. Too many things are going wrong for this to just be happening on its own. And, he thinks the mob is doing this because before all this kicked off, he was investigating the mob. And, he presented a tape to the head of this, like, mob family, Pintaro, and it shows, like, yeah, he was bribing union officials or something like that. And it was this tape that he told him, like, yeah, I'm going to hold on to this tape until you talk to the union guys and all this. The people I'm representing, they get fairly compensated or what the hell ever. And that's going to be that. Robert thinks the mob is messing with him. He doesn't know the NSA is. So, yeah. He goes to talk to Rachel, the person who got him the tape. And they meet in the park. And while the NSA guys are listening in, like, while they're listening in, they discuss the Pintaro tape, because he thinks that's the tape that Rachel got the tape from this guy named Bro. And Robert thinks that's why his life is going to hell right now. And it's weird that at this point, the NSA guys don't stop to question whether or not they're all talking about the same tape. Because the NSA guys think he's talking about the Bill Hammersley tape. Robert is talking about the Pintaro tape. And it's clear, if you know what tape you're looking for, that this ain't that tape. Like, no, something is off. Because Robert says he got the tape from Rachel, who got it from Brill. Yet they know that the tape they're looking for is a tape he got from Daniel Zavitz. So it should be clearly obvious that we're not all talking about the same tape. At no point do they think, wait a minute, none of this is adding up. These are two totally different tapes they're talking about. But whatever. They don't do that because we need them to be stupid right now so that the rest of the movie can happen. But yeah. So he gets in contact with Brill and arranges a meet, and in the bathroom, he's met by a dude who claims to be Brill, and it's Gabriel Byrne. He's played by Gabriel Byrne. I like the casting of Gabriel Byrne because he's a famous enough name that you could believe, like, okay, he might be Brill. Unless if you haven't seen the trailer or the poster or paid attention to the opening credits, you could buy that he was Brill. But, later we find out, the real Brill comes in to save Will Smith from the fake Brill, who's really an NSA guy. Yeah, so he fills him in on the fact that the mob isn't the one messing with you. The technology that's being used to track you right now, all these transmitters and all that is the NSA doing this stuff. He explains that the trackers he has on him. He explains the trackers he has on him, like they use gigahertz and whatnot, and he even simplifies it by saying it's like a low jack, but way more advanced than what the police give. Which somehow still isn't clear enough. So Robert yells, "Man, either shoot me or tell me what's going on." And it feels like this piece of dialogue, this part of the script was like, now simplify it even more for the dummies in the back who still don't get it. It's like, I don't know. It's almost like when they wrote the script, the initial draft, someone said, "I didn't get it." Then they revised it again, and someone else was like, "I kind of get it, but explain it more so." And then they were like, "Okay, idiots, you're being followed. Do you get it now?" Like, but yeah. So there's this chase ensues. He escapes the NSA guys, and this chase throughout the hotel and going to the tunnel. Before we get to the tunnel, he escapes the hotel by locking himself in a room and then triggering the fire alarm, but unknowingly spilling flammable fluids on the ground and then setting the room on fire. This dude traps himself in a room that he then accidentally sets on fire. Like, he's trapped himself in a flaming room, basically. There's like almost no way out. He's like, you just see him like yelling and like throwing stuff to try to put out the flames, like rah, rah. Like, and it's like, what the? When I was a kid, I didn't get this. I did not understand. The editing was so choppy. I did not understand that he started the fire. Like, I was confused. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you wanted the fire to start like this because that's what I thought. But like looking at it now, it's like, oh, this was an accident. You didn't mean to do this. You just set off the smoke alarm. So like, I don't know, fire department will show up or whatever. You didn't plan to trap yourself in the flames. Whatever, man. Whatever. He escapes the ambulance he was traveling in. He gets in this foot chase and he starts the foot chase that goes in this tunnel, goes underground, and he gets out through this manhole. And there's this funny scene when he's like running and it comes across this dude just washing the pipes or cleaning the drains or whatever. And he's humming roster music like, it's not so flat. Oh, I don't understand what he's saying. It doesn't matter. We just know that he's singing and totally unaware of the guy in the bathrobe running towards him with a gun. And he just grabs him and is like, normally I wouldn't do this. Next scene we cut back to the NSA guys and they're running down the tunnel and they see dude in a bathrobe sitting down on the ground and they grab him. They pull the hoodie off and it's not Will Smith. It's the guy who was humming and it's like, damn! Like, wait a minute. Did y'all really think that you had him? Like, he was running, like really running away as hard as he possibly could, and then randomly decided to just stop and sit down on the ground for y'all? Like, what the? Yeah, he gets away. So he gets away, he tracks down Bro. He tracks down Bro and he gets his help, but not before stopping by his wife's place. And he lets them know that, hey, all that stuff you said about the government spying on people, privacy bill and whatever, it's real, okay? I need you to go away, go to Philadelphia, and like stay there for a couple days, all right? Yeah. So he gets his hands on the thing that Daniel Zavitz left him. It's a disc, basically, but they keep calling it a tape. It's not. I don't know what it is. It's kind of like a floppy disk, but they keep calling it a tape. I keep calling it a tape, but whatever. So he gets his hands on the floppy disk. So for intense purposes, let's just say the tape, because it's a recording. It's not a... whatever. So he gets his hands on the tape. He finds Bro. And the movie guys... The movie explains... See, because at this point, you'd have to wonder, like, man, why is the bad guy going through all this trouble? Why does he care so much about this tape? Well, he was there. He was there when the politician got offed. He was having a conversation with him, trying to convince him to, like, let the privacy bill go through. Why does he want this privacy bill to go through so bad? Well, it's explained in a throwaway line, not by the villain, but by the villain's trophy wife. Yeah. I say trophy wife because, Jon Voight was in his 60s when this film was made, and his wife was in her 30s. So, yeah, he's said, but the trophy wife explains that, you you should have been deputy director 2 years ago, but now that the privacy bill is coming, it's definitely going to happen. You know, it has to happen. So it's explained indirectly that, oh, so he wants his privacy bill to pass so he can get his promotion. He can finally get what's coming to him, basically. And this privacy bill would make his job like way easier, apparently. He would basically be doing what him and his rogue NSA team are doing now, but this time legal. Yeah. So the NSA guys, they took out Rachel off screen and they put Robert's stuff at the scene of the crime to make it look like he did it. I can understand the reasoning behind that. So they make him a wanted man, which would make him easier to find, which makes no sense. What do you mean what do you make him easy to find for? You have access to CCTV and, you know, a satellite looking straight down and traffic cams, ATM cams, all this stuff. And you actually need regular PD's help to track him down because you make him a wanted man. Like, really? The NSA is having trouble tracking old Robert Dean before he gets help from Brill? Really? Okay, whatever. But we do have moments where he like kind of outsmarts them in some ways because there is like a van watching Rachel's house. It's how he discovers that they're framing him for a murder. He gets rid of the van by basically, you know, he goes to the house and he goes to a nearby payphone and he calls the police. Tells the police like, hey, there's this suspicious van that's parked outside. I think they might be dealing drugs or something. Could you like send a squad car to like take a look? Maybe they've been parked here for days. So it's like, a station, whatever. Please send a squad car to this address. And the NSA guys listening on the radio say, oh damn, that's us, and they leave. Like, okay, whatever. It's a good, clever moment there to show that, you know, Robert isn't dumb. He can outsmart the bad guys, you know, in places. He's not totally out of the loop. Not out of the loop, but he's not totally inept, essentially. He does have his own smarts to it. Like, yeah. So, yeah. It never comes back into play, though. Yeah, they kill Rachel, and it makes him a wanted man, but, like, that never really becomes a thing, you know? Like, because the death of Rachel and the end of this movie, I mean, like, not the end of this movie, the death of Rachel and the culmination of the main story all happen in the same day, so not enough time passes for it to be a thing. Yeah, it's a thing because it shows, like, hey, they're not above killing innocent people, and it adds some stakes for Roberts because it frames him for the murder, but at the same time, it's like, this story wraps up over the course of a day, so, like, yeah, there's not enough time. If there was a full day between Rachel's murder and if there was like a couple days between Rachel's murder and the end of the story, then you could be like, yeah, I can kind of buy that. Plus, it also makes the thing is it also doesn't factor in because Robert goes from place to place with Bro, not even trying to hide really, and there's no like there's no news report that like cops are on the lookout for a disgraced lawyer, blah blah blah. Speaking of disgraced lawyer, there's this scene early in the movie where like they leak stuff to Robert. It's what gets Robert fired in the first place. And there's a scene where he's talking to his employers and they ask him like, what is your relationship with Rachel Banks? And he claps back with them like saying, do you beat off in the shower? Do you have homosexual thoughts? And the guy's like, Robert, he's like, exactly, none of my business. It's like, none of my freaking business. You're damn right it isn't. I thought that was pretty funny. Like, this movie is funny in places. It has these moments of levity to it. So it's not all serious all the time. And that was one of them. So, like, after he says that, like, we think a leave of absence is best suited. And he asks him, like, are you firing me? And the guy goes, I think you just fired yourself. I'm like, no, I didn't. You fired him, man. You asked him about his personal life. He told you to go screw yourself. And, like, you fired him because of that? You can't fire someone because they told you to go screw yourself. You fire them if they can no longer, you know, for, like, conduct unbecoming or something. You can't fire them because of some nonsense like this. But anyway, man, that's neither here nor there. So, the character of Brill. Yeah, we're introduced to the character of Brill after he saves Robert from fake Brill. But like the character of Brill, played by Gene Hackman, is similar enough to his character of Harry Call from The Conversation, but also different enough that he can exist on his own. So, in a way, this movie, Enemy of the State, is kind of a sequel to The Conversation, when you think about it, because Though there's a lot of evidence to suggest this is an unofficial sequel. There's a lot of evidence to that because Carl destroys his apartment in the conversation, and Brill blows up the building he's living in this movie. They're both being hunted by government agents because of a tape they have concerning a murder conspiracy. So yeah, um, they get away from the bad guys after he blows up his apartment. There's a scene where the car they're in catches fire, and like Robert is on fire, and as he gets out of the car, he's trying to desperately stomp out the flames. They play that in fast forward, like it's hilarious when they play this in fast forward. It's just like, dude, like you could play the flash the car to the what's this the Carney music like, and it would fit because that's how ridiculously fast he's moving. So yeah, the tape they have is destroyed. They no longer have any leverage, but the bad guys don't know that. So they work on that. And Robert and Brill decide to go on the offensive when they use the NSA's own tech to get some blackmail on a congressman, the congressman who's pushing for the privacy bill, as well as to make it seem as if Jon Voight's character is cheating on his wife, along with messing with his credit cards as a way to get his attention and arrange a meeting to try and get him to confess about the tape. But it all backfires on them, and they get caught. They get caught by Jon Voight and the NSA guys. It all ends in this big shootout at the Pintero Diner. So Robert decides, I have a plan. They caught us. I'm going to tell them that, Pintero has the tape. And Pintero, last time he saw Robert, wanted the tape that Robert had of him meeting the union officials. So Pintero tells the guy, you see this guy? He is the guy, he's the guy responsible for this tape. Now, neither side knows that they're talking about different tapes, but so they both have reason to, not like each other. So the villain and the secondary villain, they off each other, and all their henchmen go out to, neither realizing they're both talking about different tapes. Neither of them stops to question, wait, are we talking about the same tape? Because Pintero says videotape, and because Robert had a physical cassette tape, an actual VHS tape. Like, thing is, NSA guy should, at this point, Reynolds should question, wait a minute, videotape? We're not looking for a videotape. Like, the tape we're looking for is but nope, no one stops to question anything. There's too much testosterone. There's too much, anger in this room. There's too much bad guy energy. But anyway, in the end, after both sides take each other out, Robert walks away. He's cleared of all charges. The privacy bill is dead. Brill gets to escape, and the movie, Robert gets to go back home totally, redeemed almost. The film ends with Larry King talking to that one. The film ends with talking to that politician who was pushing for the privacy bill and basically says, he's like, where do you draw the line between, defending national security and defending civil liberties? How far does that line go? Because, you got no right to come into my home. It's the limits that we got to put on the government's ability to monitor national security. Basically saying, keep an eye out for us, keep us safe, but don't violate our individual and privacy rights to do so. Yeah, that's basically the message the movie wants to say in the end. Final thoughts on Enemy of the State. Well, it's an 8 out of 10. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I would rewatch, would recommend. It's a classic. Seen it plenty of times. It's one of Tony Scott's best films, which is saying something because his 90s filmography from Last Boy Scout to True Romance, The Fan, Crimson Tide is just fantastic. So this stacks up really well with those movies. Alongside those movies, Regina King plays her role as Robert's wife really well. She adds, she gets across the movie's themes early on and kind of, what's the word? Not precognition. It's she kind of foreshadows the kind of things that'll come later on in her rant about this politician is essentially talking about giving up our personal privacies when he's doing that. So it's yeah, she works as the Holly to Will Smith's John McClane type character in that he's a regular guy who brought his marriage to the brink of divorce, and it took this extraordinary series of events to bring him and his wife closer together. Will Smith works great in this film as the flawed hero, in that he's not a goody two shoes type guy where everything in his life is perfect. He's made mistakes in the past. He's actually kind of a jerk in places, but he plays the role of Robert pretty good, especially in the first half of the movie. And yeah, though in the latter stages of like in the early stages of the third act, he does feel like he's being carried by the story, and it's like Brill taking over at this point. Like, he's just along for the ride in some places, but yeah. So yeah, the things that stop this movie from being a 9 out of 10 or stop it from being perfect: plot induced stupidity. Yes, PIS. We call it on the Moonlight Kingdom podcast. We call this PISS, plot induced stupidity scene. Characters do dumb things for no reason, even when it makes no sense for them to do it. This happens. Some dumb things in this movie happen because, well, we need these characters to get caught. Yeah, like when Robert calls his wife on a payphone, even after Brill tells him that NSA taps phone lines and can use them to find exactly where he is. Like he's being watched by the government. He still calls a phone because, well, we need the bad guys to have some idea where they went. Not only that, but in that same scene, we have Brill looking directly into a camera, not into it, like directly at a camera. The paranoid, like former government spook who knows that cameras can be used to track him and all that, looks directly at one, like so the bad guys can get a picture of him and find out who he is. The picture, another thing that makes this movie a kind of a sequel to The Conversation, is that the picture they have of Brill, real name Edward Lyle, is still from the movie The Conversation. So yeah, the filmmaker knew what they were doing. Good old Tony Scott knew what he was doing. Yeah. Another thing, the NSA guys do it too, because the one guy who's played by Jack Black, he records Reynolds shooting Brill. He records Reynolds shooting Brill and interrogating him in the back of their van, and admitting that he's the one who took out the politician for no reason other than, well, we need evidence so that the bad guys can get caught in the end. But so even when they ask him in the movie, why did you record it? It's like that, like thing, like I think in certain interrogations they teach you to answer questions without actually answering questions. He basically answers without answering by not answering the question that was asked. They asked him, why did you record it? And he says, well, we were there. They asked him, why did you record it? And he answers the question of, why were you there? He answers, we were there just to provide technical support. Like, we just thought it was a STO, standard training op. We didn't know any of this stuff would kick off. Like we don't know nothing. And the bad guys are like, do they know that their boss is dead? No, I don't think so. They're still stalling. Yeah, they clearly don't know because he's like, they're still stalling, man. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, the so yeah, aside from the plot-induced stupidity, the privacy bill. This privacy bill in this movie is a precursor for what would later become the Patriot Act, which was enacted by like the Bush administration, which it was brought into effect like 3 years after this movie. So remember, I said like, yeah, this movie is a precursor for a bunch of stuff. So like, yeah, this privacy bill was a very solid. This movie foreshadowed a lot of things. The idea of the government tapping phones and using cameras to keep an eye on people, and government overreach and stuff like that. That is a theme. Those themes that are really very well, very present in this movie, and this movie is very prescient to like the world we live in now. There's a lot that was foreshadowed in this movie that is reflective of like the kind of world we live in now and the kind of stuff going on in today's world, like, so yeah, this movie is so good. I absolutely recommend this film. Total 8 out of 10. You should definitely check it out. It's amazing. So yeah. That's all I got to say on Enemy of the State, directed by good old Tony Scott, one of the great directors of the 90s and early 2000s, even the late 80s. So yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This has been Moonlight Kingdom Reviews. I've been your Moonlight King. Peace out.